Chris, thank you for hopping back on the podcast. We did a podcast yesterday together in the evening. I drove hours to be with you. And
thank you for that.
Yeah, and here's the interesting thing. We had our whole thing laid out. We knew what we were going to talk about. And then I drive up 20 minutes out of leaving your place. You text me and you're like, read this. And it's from our dear friend Julie Mai Tran over at Share My Roots. Her Instagram handle is at Share My Roots. Shout out to Julie, a dear friend. And we already recorded something that is weirdly and oddly exactly what she was talking about. And she wrote it out so eloquently that you and I said, you know what? We should probably redo our episode so we could address some of these things that she brought up.
Yeah. So right after, like you said, right after while we were recording, she posted this. And then when you left, I saw it and it touched on everything we wanted to talk about, but she had it point by point by point to address everything that I've had in my head. We've been discussing with multiple people and on topic where we said nobody wants to talk about this openly.
That's the crazy thing. We said nobody wants to talk about it. And then all of a sudden it's in Julie's zeitgeist, it's in your mind, it's in my mind. We need to talk about this. And I'm scared shitless to talk about this. But today I think we are we're being resolute about being much more, we got to put our foot down. We got to really talk about how we're feeling right now.
Well, the thing is, like day to day, it used to be year to year, decade to decade, whatever it is, things have changed. Now we wake up, look at the news cycle, and with information flowing in so quickly, and especially how it affects us as how we live. And not to address it is a mistake because look at since we talked barely 24 hours, they passed a bill that is now going to affect not just us, but everybody around us, if not the whole entire nation and the world going forward. You know what I mean? And some people might not see this as important. It's a bill. They need their money but they need the money to perpetrate or, execute things that's going to be happening. And knowing what's been happening now with funding, we have to talk about these things.
If this is the America that you want, then you might as well tune out right now. I'm just saying that right now. If this is the America that you really, really want, there's no need to listen further to this particular episode. That we're not talking about Vietnamese culture on this show. We're going to really get into American culture today on July 4th.
Yeah. So like Julie said at the end, if you want to unfollow politics, culture, food, everything it intersects. If you want to unfollow us because we want to bring this up as a dialogue, then fucking unfollow me. You know what I mean? And we're at that point where if you don't want to talk about it, keep silent, be the good model minority and shut the fuck up. No, that's not us right now, and it was us. And then, like I said, we were scared to speak. We don't want to alienate anybody. We as people want to be something for everybody.
We do. And you and I think in the last 5 years of our lives, we're just trying to conform. And I think we're done. I think we're done conforming. I think we just need to what I thought about last night is if we rewind 30 years ago, after the Marine Corps, I could have went to law enforcement, which I did. I did apply full transparency. I applied to law enforcement. I was going to take that path. And today I could have been an ICE agent.
Just so you brought that up, I signed up to be a sheriff.
Yeah, we could have gone down this road, but wherever we landed, every year that we landed, every decade that we landed for whatever we were doing in our lives, it didn't take us down that route. We made decisions or decisions were made for us. I don't know what it is, but today we're looking at history and we're going, wait a minute, this does not make sense on what's happening. It's just not humane. It doesn't feel like humanity is at its finest.
It's not. And forgivability, rehabilitation, just the humanity and empathy of people has now gone by the wayside. Instead of being nice to somebody, they'd rather stand on some kind of talking point, which is like, it's weird to me. I said, let's just have dialogue to get along. But no, things get shifted. You know what I mean? And we have to talk about it since everybody wants to talk about it and inflict their ideology on us, but yet you keep quiet because it doesn't align with you and you just don't want an argument. So we as people have always been confrontational with issues, but yet as we get older, we get less confrontational. You know what I mean?
The topic of today really is this the America that you all want? That's the question. And I think Julie started to write. There's like 20 plates on her carousel, and she says, "Dear fellow Vietnamese Americans," and then she dives into this painful irony of us being immigrants. I just had a podcast recently with Dr. Namsi Kim, and we were talking about Guam. 110,000 people came from Vietnam through Guam and then through the 4 camps. When we think about
I'm one of them.
you're one of them that went through Guam. So an overwhelming
Yes.
majority went through Guam. Now think about this. All those people that came from Afghanistan, they have to turn back very soon. That's imagine if you came in 1975 and then by 1978 you had to turn back and go back to communist Vietnam.
It's just mind boggling to think that you wouldn't have a connection to that. Especially we are asylum seekers. A lot of people we know work for the US government during the time of war.
Did we
How many
forget
times
that?
have huh?
Did we forget that as a community? Like what the
And
fuck?
that's the thing.
Our parents all
There-
served in the US, some capacity for the United States. That's what we're here celebrating July 4th, 50 fucking years later. And here we are as a community turning our backs on people like the people from Afghanistan. It's just
It's just
mind blowing to me.
and Afghanistan is just one topic
One
of
topic.
many other countries. That's just one country that US had conflict or interest or whatever they did in that region of the world. Let it be aid, disruptive, whatever it is, that for whatever their agenda, they were there. And we're not going to get into the politics of why we're there. You know what I mean? Just like Vietnam, we don't know the innate details, but they were there. So the US has always been in some other country's business, correct? And somehow there's disruption, there's war, there's chaos, and overthrow of government, whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? It happened.
I don't
And
think this is about us being liberal, progressive, conservative.
no, not at all.
That it's not. This is not that at all. We're not talking about that. We're just talking about pure human decency. We're talking about deportations as it relates to humanity, as it relates to not like no one deserves to be living in fear. This is what Julie wrote. No one deserves to live in fear, to be stripped of human rights and dignity. Did our parents?
She touched on a lot of good points. What is illegal? What's the definition of illegal? Like she said real eloquently, when we left our shores, it was illegal. It was a crime. It was a crime from our country. It was a crime from the country we landed on. And so we're deemed as criminals. That's why we were refugees in a refugee camp. What the hell do you do with these people?
The people from Afghanistan also left illegally. And then they were
Yes.
let in legally. They were let into the United States like we were legally. And now they all are stripped of their green cards and they have to turn back.
Like a gentleman in San Diego just a couple weeks ago went to go to his asylum. They canceled his asylum, got detained on the spot. No warning, nothing. It's just, no, your journey's over. And I couldn't even imagine if my parents were in that office, as refugees, just trying to get their documents the right way, the legal way. You're a host country, gave you the invitation, and they just revoked it. You know what I mean? Nope.
I don't think that we're going to be able to change legislation and policy here. That's
No,
not the point.
no.
The point is we want
We're moving forward.
yeah, we want to inform our community. We want to let our people know that the way certain people in our community are looking at this topic is way off. It's just entirely off. When you think that you've assimilated and become American after 50 years, that you can turn your back and you could side with this deportation policy. That's the real danger here.
And that's the thing. What American or what America did you want to see? This is the question of like, what is 4th of July? What is being American? And what is assimilating, right? And we're the benefactors of somebody from America, a good American family sponsored us. And And I'm very grateful and thankful that that happened. But yet, that was America of the day. Now, Vietnamese as Americans now don't even act like that American. If anything, they went hard on being my America, only my America. Which one is that? You know what I mean? And where they shut the door on other communities, other people that have the same affliction that we had, same journey, different set of circumstances, but pretty much overlapping in the same circumstances. You know, being displaced, but yet needed a host country. And then the host country now gives them the fucking FU. You know what I mean? But yet our people stand behind that, which is fucking mind boggling. You know, so that's what we're trying to unpack right now. So
It's probably human nature to, like, you arrive in a safe spot, you work hard, and you save some gold and houses, and you got your shit, you got your loot, you got what you want. What you do is you shut the door and you lock it and you throw the keys out. That's what you do. That's what we're doing. You throw the
and you booby trap it.
you booby trap it, you scare anybody else from coming in because you already got your spot in.
Yeah, I got mine, so what's up? And you know, nobody else can get it. You know what I
Funny
mean?
thing is, do you really have your spot? Because all you have to do is look towards what happened to the Japanese and the Chinese being excluded. That's the thing. That it's like we can't forget that the history of America excludes people that look like us. But we have to dissect what the hell is going on. People are being removed for, like, reasons that, I think we can do this differently. I think we can think about this differently.
Well, think about this. Like we were just basing off. The goalpost has changed for what is a crime that's removable. Okay, as of recent, they just passed another one where a DWI, if you're a green card holder, just by a DWI is now an offense that's removable. It's not an aggravated felony. Now that is removed. So the bar is being lowered and lower and lower of what they want to remove, and now changing the goalpost. And if it's retroactive or not, they're going to be removing people who thought they were safe and think they're safe. Are they really safe with the current like conditions and what they want to implement? And some people might say we're fear mongering and speculating, but it's already written. It's being passed. It's passed. It's right in front of your face. What are you talking about fear mongering? We're trying to see what will it do to our culture, to our people, and being Asian American, or even just trying to be American. Are you allowed to be American?
No, well, you're not. You have to be white American. You have to act like a white
Yeah.
American. You
And,
have to
and
be
I
white.
never wanted to say
You
that.
have to
You
be
know what I
white
mean?
passing. You and I are really fucking good at white passing. I'm really good at it. I can be a white passing. I can be a white guy. And that shit was something that I believed in. I went all in on that bullshit for so many years of my life. And I look back and I go, what was that all for?
I did the same thing. High school. Everybody's calling you a fob, gook, chink, and you went totally opposite. I started to skate, surf. Listen to punk rock music. Did everything that was really anti-Vietnamese. You know what I mean? Trying to fit in, but you truly never did. And like you said, we're very white adjacent sometimes, if you want to say it that way. Even our own people call us mug up and you're a banana, you're a coconut. But but were we ever? We were always that, if you want to use that word, token kid, right? I had a bunch of white Mexican friends, but I was the only Asian kid. Because why? They say, oh, you're the exception. I go, what the fuck does that the exception mean? You know what I mean? So exception or accepted. Either way. Uh we you can act a certain way, but are you fully that way? You know what I mean? And if now to be fully American is what, I don't care if it's left or right, what is deemed American, right? I don't know. To right now, I'm very confused what that means. I thought that patriotism, I pledge my allegiance, I love this country and full heartedly. And so for all you out there that think that we don't love America, you guys, you're
No, we
foolish.
love
Do we like the
America. We love America. We love what it represented. Um,
what it afforded us? What it,
but
I loved it
but
here.
as Americans, we have the right to say what we want. We have a right to say uh, what what is being said right now, which is it's not fair. Here it is. Here's what bothers me. here's what bothers me. I think when I think about putting my white hat on and
Yeah,
behaving as a white guy and having Asian friends who are like really proud of like being white adjacent and walking around feeling safe, I go, oh my God, that's a real reality. That's a
it
real
is.
reality that an Asian person can be like a white guy or white in white society, and you can be like, oh, I'm safe. That they can't touch me. But then as I live in the community and I live with people around my neighborhoods and in my city who can't speak English, who don't have papers, or Vietnamese people who are in weird predicaments with their immigration status, I begin to think, man, I look just like them. And I think that that's the part of humanity that we need to start reframing and thinking about.
We reframed our own self, wear different hats, code switch, you name it, try to fit in, try to do this, be very Americana, do everything that you could. And when they said, speak English, do this, do that, and that's, but again, I've I've been feeling not accepted. You know what I mean? And can we act and then just put our head down when we're not? No. You know what I mean? The true fabric about being American, this is, and they call it the melting pot of all cultures, that we have an opportunity, which we did. And we still have it today? I mean, the illusion of it is there, but I don't, everybody's now a rat race and trying to make money, trying to fit in, trying to get that house, trying to do this. And we're at that age where it's tiring and we're just chasing our tails half the time. And the people that are successful, that have it, have the means, have built this empire, are the ones that now I feel like they're gatekeeping and they're not paying it forward or even having a helping hand. And we're not here to beg for anything, Ken. We earn our own
You know,
stuff.
you
You
know,
know what I
you know
mean?
the irony is
Hmm.
that you and I are both Vietnamese Catholics. We came up Vietnamese Catholics,
Hmm.
very Vietnamese Catholic families. And how many people from our churches and how many people in our world of Vietnamese Catholics that are actually on board with this deportation business?
And that's where, like,
Crazy as
I don't want
shit.
to lose. That's the craziest shit. I do not want to lose faith in what they're good people. We know this, but yet, but their own policy of who to be good for has shifted. Like, I'll give you an example. The church I go to, they have regular masses, but they have Vietnamese masses, they have Spanish masses, and they have regular masses. Okay, ironically I go to all three sometimes. Whatever the schedule is, I can go to a Spanish mass because I know the hymns and everything. I just say it in my own whatever I'm comfortable with. But we all share that same Catholic background. But yet, do our people look at the Hispanics how they look, or do they look at us and say these are my brethrens, and my brothers and sisters in Christ, and say, hey, they need help? And I think we touched on this yesterday, where a good majority of Vietnamese who came here don't even have to be religious, but was helped out by the Catholic charities. Okay, they have filled out paperwork, got people sponsored, resettled people, you name it. But yet, our church, sometimes I only see them do it for their own. When a newcomer comes, they settle them. But have we reached outside our own culture to give that hand? Or I'm not saying not that nobody does it. I'm just saying the good majority of us don't. Where it's like paying it forward to another culture, another person in need that has same circumstances, or if not even the same, need your help and assistance to settle here, to assimilate, to feel comfortable in a foreign land. You know what I mean?
You know, the crazy thing is the newly appointed bishop of San Diego, who's the first, I think, bishop that was appointed by the new Pope, Pope Leo, um, spoke out against ICE. He said, yo, that's not cool. Shouldn't be doing that. He spoke out against it. And he uses his platform, as a Vietnamese American bishop, appointed by Pope Leo. He's straight up saying, yo, this is not the business. This is not what we as the Christian Catholic caucus people should be doing.
Yeah, and you take you take religion, you take politics, you take race, okay? if it has to be melted in, but it shapes policy, correct? Because if it wasn't for certain policies, we wouldn't be here. If it wasn't for certain policies, we would now being taken away from here. And so when you don't advocate, you don't speak up, you don't change the mindset and thinking, oh, do it the way I did it. But the way you did it
It's different
was
time,
very far, far
different
away.
time, different place.
It was different time, different place. And going back to the religion where the Pope now, and I asked you this question yesterday, do you believe our parents, our generation, our culture, would they follow the Pope or the president?
I believe they will follow the president. The Pope means
Okay, and
nothing.
I find that hard to
Yep.
believe. So I'm gonna bet different on that, just because I know how devout some of the Catholics
But
are.
dude, the people have spoken. The people voted for Trump. And I guarantee you go to church nowadays. And the reason why Chris and I are bringing this up is because we come from the Vietnamese Catholic background, and we know how entrenched they feel about this immigration because we have family who are Vietnamese Catholics, and I think it's safe to say that the majority of Vietnamese Catholics are probably going to side with Trump about getting everybody out. If you're, if you are not legal here, you don't have papers, then you need to be picked up by ICE and you need to get kicked out. I don't think Pope Leo agrees with that, and I definitely am sure Bishop Michael Pham of San Diego does not. And I would love to hear the comments. I normally don't comment back with people because a lot of these times I'm talking to academics. It's out of my pay grade. I don't, there's no way I can I can't comment and sound like I know what I'm saying because I'm a student of all of this. But in this,
Same here.
yeah, but in this aspect, I think there's only one litmus test to me. Jesus Christ says, God is love. Are we operating out of love? Are we treating our fellow human beings in the world with love? And if the answer is no, then look, I get it. It might be hard. It might be challenging to figure that out, but we should put some effort into probably deporting people in the right way instead of sending these goons onto the street. It doesn't make any sense.
The thing is, immigration policy has always been there. You know the rules. The people that have taken accountability. I fucked up. They're taking accountability. Okay, that's me. That's who that person is. They should go. They know they did their shit, and they're gonna be accountable for it. Is it fair? There's nobody's gonna have empathy for them. But to your point, how they're doing it to people who are doing it, trying to do it the right way, dragging them off the street, canceling their court dates, don't even give an opportunity to do it the right way. Now that's the real issue here. And if you don't see any sympathy in that, just look to our own community and our parents, how they struggle to fill out paperwork, going to their court date, getting their documents, getting their papers correct, right? And not even given the opportunity to answer to those papers, and being stripped from it was what we're asking right now from the community. You're talking about doing it the right way, okay? What if you were invited to do it the right way, and then all of a sudden they change their mind, say, "Oh no, nah," you know what I mean? We're gonna cancel all that we did 3, 5, 10 years ago. We changed our policy, and nobody voiced up, and this is where we're at right now.
You know, David Chappelle, he goes, "What's up, DJ Khalid?" Right? He's like, "Wait, you
Hmm.
Palestinian, and you're like the fattest Palestinian." And he said, "Wait, isn't it's weird? Like all your people are dying, but you're the quietest Palestinian, like on social media." And Julie from her handle Share My Roots. I want to reintroduce what she said. She goes, in 1979, the American people protested and organized. The American people, and a lot of these activists were led by people like Joan Baez. Joan Baez, arguably, was somebody like Lady Gaga back in the day. She had a big stature, and she led these protests against certain things, and she brought the welcome to Vietnamese refugees to America. And that's 4 years after the fall of Saigon. And we do have celebrities, and I think that in Hollywood, there's people who are working to kind of like make these situations come to light. So I'm just saying that I know that there are people on the ground in America that are great, good Americans that are doing what they're trying to do. But at the end of the day, like there's no reason to go about with all this scaring and this painful like scare tactics that's happening in the world today in America.
And that's the thing. It's freaking people out. I'm already getting calls from people that have green cards and are naturalized and saying, "Is this real?" When we had this discussion 6 months ago, they go, "No, that's all.
Real, yeah.
That's all. Yeah, that's all conspiracy theory and this and that and whatnot." You're looking too much into
It's
this.
against the Constitution. Well, here we are.
Yeah, and here we are. SCOTUS have changed the rules of everything's right now is being amended. Um, you know, we're being beholden to one piece of verbiage that can change a whole pattern of how immigration is dealt with.
I want to
And
remind all of our listeners that we are children of immigrants.
we are the product of refugees. We are a product of asylum seekers. We are a product of people who fled war. We are a product of people telling us that we are traitors. We are that you can't go to jail, go in an imprisonment camp, re-education, all that. And the fear was there. You know what I mean? If you say the fear of torture was there. Um, and if you speak otherwise, we know we can attest to this, but yet you don't see the fear in other people that they would be tortured in their own war-torn country. And if you never wanted them in here, okay, that's policy and that's what it is. But now we're talking about people that's already here trying to do it the right way. Even then, where do you set your bar and what's the limit? Oh, just swipe it all out? No. Just start this whole immigration all over and nobody else come in. And who can answer what the right way is right now?
Well, I want to address the Vietnamese men of our generation who came when they were 10, 12, 14 years old and got involved in gangs and they're getting swept up. I want to really address that.
Okay.
Has anybody ever thought that if America was not involved in this war, that all these kids that came in the 70s and the 80s would have had parental guidance, would have had the proper guidance, would not have been picked on and bullied and have to join gangs and then commit murders? I'm putting it right back squarely onto the U.S. government that happened. That is the fault of the and fuck all the people who said, well, I went through that time period and I didn't go to gangs and all that shit. Well, good for you. There's a lot of people who didn't and are suffering and went to jail because psychologically they just couldn't handle certain things, or criminals and people who did time. And I think that when we think back on all of these people who are getting deported now, I don't know what the number is, but
over 10,000.
Over 10,000 have been deported now.
No, deported 200, a little bit less than 300 as since the administration took over. Yes,
more, right?
It's gonna be more. But to your point on that, and I agree with you because okay, and let's talk about today where this alpha male masculinity say, oh, bullying and stand up on your own. Don't be that pussy woke ass shit. Okay, let's take it back then when you are now this fob, don't know the language, you're being picked on. You're told to stand up for yourself. When you do, you get in trouble. You do stand up. Even your own community says, "Oh, don't rock the boat." You're a guest in this country. Take it on the chin, right? But also on the flip side, they said, "No, don't be a pussy. Stand up for yourself. What's right? You can't counter bullying unless you stand up." And so all these guys that stood up to the bullies that get harassed, and all the guys that you said that did it the right way, never had any trouble. Let me ask them this: have they ever felt that they were safe when they were growing up? Did they not get bullied? And did they wanted to do something about it? They held their tongue. Now you hear about this generational trauma growing up, how horrible it was. They wish they could have done that. Yes, they had a safe passage. Somehow they put their head down. But when you're talking about this tough guy, we're like, okay, you want to tell him not to do that? Of course, nobody wants violence. Of course, nobody wants. But do you want to run home from school every goddamn day of your life? And the more you run, the more they're chasing you. And I'm not trying to justify their actions of joining gang, doing crime. It got out of hand once it became cliques and big organization. But it started out as looking out for each other.
And that's the thing. That's all I'm addressing. It started out with problems that were built into the system and that that it was not corrected, and it just kept snowballing. And maybe there's this thing called the federal prison, a complex, a prison complex, industrial
Industrial
complex,
complex.
and
Yeah.
it's about money making. It's about making laws that doesn't rehabilitate humans that went through some bullshit, but instead, like, fuck it, it works for us. Let's lock them up and make money.
Well, and that's funny that you said that because statistically, let's talk about our community and let's talk about California as a whole. Crime has dropped. Gang initiation membership has dropped. People in certain communities don't do these. The young don't do this nonsense that a lot of them do, and now the jails aren't filled anymore. So that complex has kind of slowed down, if not, they're doing a good job of not reproducing criminals, but yet now that whole industry is collapsing. And now you see a different industry that took its place, which like the privatization. Let's talk about when the whole industrial complex, as you say, with Geo, Core Civic, everybody that is involved in private prisons. They were building prisons like in mass. And all of a sudden now they went dormant. And all of a sudden this year they're all reactivated. So you can see it as a humanitarian thing, a business thing, and if you follow stocks and that's what you do, you're making money. Fucking more. Hope you can spend it and choke on it. You know what I mean? But anyways, um, you know, but the thing is, it's purely about money, profit. How you gonna scale? Okay, and everybody knew, the hard-on crime was to lock them up for a long time, where they'd have bodies in the bed, and now that you have bodies for immigrants in the beds, processing fees, whatnot. I mean, we can take it all different
Yeah,
angles.
it's working out. It's good. It's good for business.
It's good for business. If you want to package this as making it safer, okay, you can say it that you want packages as you don't want immigrants here, but the fact still remains there's a profit to it. Okay, and are they doing it with due process to profit from it? It's been proven time and again in every place, so even in the juvenile thing where for-profit prison for juveniles, they were just sending them there just to fill a bed, right? And there was such a mad problem and they had to do something about it, and they did something about it, and thank God our community don't reproduce gang members. It was not generational for us. It had its time, it ran its course. There's still some knuckleheads, don't get me wrong, you know what I mean, that, but as far as if you compare today and 20 years ago, it's like it's self-corrected itself, but that now it manifests into another problem. And like you said, nobody ever gave you a playbook on what you need to do here to survive.
When you listen to other podcasts and you listen to other people who are in the public space talking about ICE, they're talking about, government controls, and it's not even conservative and liberal progressive. It's not even like political parties. It's not even conspiracy theory. This is what it's about. This is about testing the limits of control in society. What
And that's
the what is it at the airport, TSA? Wait a minute.
yes.
Before 2001, 2005, there was no TSA. We went through the airports and there was no issues going through the airports. But little by little, we got to like clamp down and we got to find ways. And it's not a conspiracy theory. This is just how it's rolling out. That's it.
Well, like we were discussing, that came about after 9/11, right? Anti-terrorism. You had to have a boogeyman. Everything was anti-terror. Patriot Act, TSA, a bunch of new government agencies that tackled that department, that core issue. And all these anti-terrorist, officers, organizations, this tackling that one problem. Now, the new boogeyman is immigration. And they tie all immigration to this. I'm not saying that the immigration problem is not something to be talked about, but that control of it, the narrative of it, how it's now become that boogeyman. You should fear this. And I ask people, what are you fearing about these immigrants? What have they done to you? Who hurt you like that? You know what I mean?
I look. I'm gonna go to Obama. Obama deported more fucking people than any president, right, in the history of, and arguably, that's pretty fucked up, right? But
Yeah, but he didn't use AK, ARs, and
yeah,
fucking flak
and
vests,
goons.
and you know.
Yeah, and goons. I think it's the way it was done, right? There's like sort of like, okay, we get it. Immigration is an issue. Deportation is something that it's an obligation that the government has to do something to kind of like fix the problem. And having democratic presidents, you got a lot of people coming over the border, and Obama arguably again was the president that deported so many people. But the fear and the way that due process,
The
the
tactics.
tactics, I think that is what I really want Vietnamese American young people, old people in Vietnam to think about. Like, there's ways to do things that doesn't disrupt and create chaos in society. And I want people to think like the next election cycle to really think about what we're saying, because a lot of the Vietnamese American older folks voted for him, voted for this type of
Wholeheartedly, and they're still dug in on it. You know what I mean? And that's what I mean. Like, we all say we're law abiding, and for the most part, as much as we can, right? But yet they're changing what the law and abiding is. So what, should I just surrender to somebody that just says they're that person because they have a vest on, or should I be shown a badge and identification like before, or a piece of paper? Hey, you're fucked. You know what I mean? I'm here to talk to you, and this is me. That's not happening now. Somebody's just gonna show up, or guys right now flying with a green card, coming back international. If you have any record on, and it doesn't matter if it's expunged, doesn't matter if you're holding a green card, you have any crime that once border patrol sees it, you are now in that removable status to be removed, and all of a sudden you went on vacation, can never even see your home again. So ask our community to think about that. All the ones that's been traveling think it's their state because they have that card, because I have my papers. You know what I mean? And then how far else would they go? First, the removable, like we talked about. Then the people seeking a green card. Then the people now that holds a green card. And now they're even talking about birthright citizenship. So they keep moving the goalposts of what. And so if you can't see the pattern of what they're trying to eradicate, I mean, maybe you can call me delusional blind, but dude, and I hate to quote Project 2025, but man, it's right there in the playbook.
it's written for you in the wide open. You know,
And ask the audience to read that and comment to us that if the guys that architected that are not in charge right now, tell me about that.
yeah,
If they are,
leave a comment in the comment section, and we'd love to hear from you. We want this debate to rage and go viral online, obviously, because we want to see we want to see where the community stands on this.
yeah, I'm very curious how my people is. I don't want to be disappointed, because as a culture, we're very good-hearted, natured people that we try to help. Or is that just a facade? Is that just optics that we try to help? Or we're very selective who we want to help, and then we're very selective in the battles we want to. It's like, I don't know now. I'm really questioning my own community where they're even going against their own policies.
But
Or
we talked about this on our podcast that we did yesterday. I don't want to alienate the family that I have. And I mean that in every general way. The family, my friends, the people that I love that don't agree with me with the current administration's ways. I know a lot of people are cutting each other off. They're cutting their parents off. They're cutting their siblings off. I don't know if we escaped harsh conditions 50 years ago. After the war, we escaped 50 years ago, and we valued each other's relationship. We valued our siblings. We valued our parents. We are Vietnamese that love family. And how could
yes,
we allow 50 years later this political discourse to get out of control, and we fight each other, and we don't want to stay with each other? That makes no sense to me at all.
dude, it hasn't made any sense to me in the last 10 years. Okay, over 10 years. That how I could sit, and like most families, my parents are very Republican, voted Trump. You know what I mean? And I've never had, that's their right. They earned it to have a vote. You know what I mean? and they chose their way. I spell out what it could affect them, like in the Medicaid, Medi-Cal, social benefits, and all that. They think that's all lie. You know what I mean? And now with the budget passed, I'm going to see how that lie plays out because now I have to re-explain to them how. And then here's the sick part. Now they're going to have to call you to help them navigate this.
That is a recurring pattern that
Okay?
parents will call their kids, or siblings that voted for Trump, or husbands and wives that voted for Trump. Now they're being deported, and then they have to call in for help. And the people on the other end is like, wait, you voted for Trump. And they're like, we regret it. This is happening all over the country. We regret voting for Trump. We had no idea, which is fine. That's all good. But right now, let's think about how we approach the next few years of being American. Is this the America that you want? I think that's the question that we return back
That's the
to
question.
over again. Is this the America that you want? And you know what? I do want to go to Vietnam, but I'm not going to go to Vietnam because there's many reasons why I'm not going to go to Vietnam, because I get that all the time. Fuck you. Why don't you just go back to Vietnam? Why don't you just go back to the homeland? No, because the United States is my home. I'm born here and I love America with all of its warts, with all of its problems, with all of this shit. It's still my place. And Vietnam is also my place. I love Vietnam too. I can love both places. I can hate certain things about both places. So shut the fuck up about me leaving and going to Vietnam.
Well, it's just like when everybody.
Goddamn country for 4 years as a U.S. Marine. I'm staying here.
Yes, like me. I love America. I was raised here. And all the people like, that bullshit where like, oh, you don't like it, get the fuck out. You're in California and you're complaining about California. Aren't you the same guy that says if you don't like it here, get the fuck out? But you want to tell me, but yet you don't want me to complain. But I don't even complain. I'm bringing up issues like it's not about complaining. Like, is this right or is it wrong? Is it and to understand? Okay, if I have to understand how to navigate it, cool. I'm just addressing things, right? But their first thing they go to is if you don't fucking like it, get the fuck out of here, right? So he's
very anti-American to get the fuck out. On
yeah.
July 4th, I am reminding you, to run is not American. To fight each other is very American. To fight each other in Vietnam, also very Vietnamese. It's human. We need to be discussing this shit. We need to be in battle with each other and do it civilly. We need to be in discourse. We need to talk about this, and we need to figure this out together. I'm not leaving here. And
that's the thing. I want to have faith in my humanity and my people. Maybe it's their false understanding, or like the people that regret it. I didn't fully understand, or they were sold something, and now the reality sets in. But I've also met people who are dug in. They don't even care if it fucks them entirely, the whole family. They're just so driven by their stance.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear anything
they don't
else.
have the energy to debate all this shit. That's why. And I get it. I understand.
And I'm not even here to debate. If I brought up something, counter it with something that okay, I'm wrong. We're mad enough to say I concede. I'm mad enough to say okay, I didn't know about that.
But I think
Okay, tell me about
the
that.
overwhelming majority of America is feeling Trump today. They voted him in. A lot of people are happy. And obviously, we're seeing a lot of protests. People like in our camps where we don't like what we see. We don't like how America is being ran. This is not the America we want to. And I think that eventually, the only way to change this shit is really to get out and vote. That's the way you.
That's it. So this is encouraging dialogue where okay, no, don't be sold a talking point. Don't be sold just because that makes you happy. And if you actually look at the whole, if you say you play the long game and you're with the community, you're with the humankind, you're with the goodness of like bringing people together and not be just self-serving and just for yourself. If you're that person and you look at what is going to happen, would you vote in your own interest or the interest of a whole? And I have to ask that. You know what I mean? Are you just self-serving? This is just best serves you, or is it going to serve us as a community? Because a lot of people talk about community. A lot of people talk about we're in this together. But yet, I see a lot of people just in it for themselves.
But that's human nature. I think that's, Vietnamese or white or black or Mexican. We're all
Mhm.
in this for ourselves. We're human beings and human nature. But we need to remind ourselves that question that you just asked. Like what is this? Are we doing this
Yeah.
together? Are we all saying fuck yous and we're just like really on our own here?
Even our community. Look at me when we started like all this social media and looking into our community. Me and you knew that we had such a divided community on all different levels of aspect. The have and have nots, the connected, the unconnected,
Yes.
the working man versus the well connected man that has a cush
The
job,
two flags,
and then
the two
the
flags.
the entitled, the non entitled. You know
Yep,
what I mean?
yep, yep.
Okay, we can go on. The one that's been here longer and the one that just came. And the newly arrived that and it's all skewed now. And are we united as a culture? It's fucking hard to say. If somebody asked me right now, I don't see a united, front of our own culture here. We see a mixed bag of. Look at the young and the old right now. It seems like there's a big battle online. The I only hear voices from the young, and they have more empathy, more social impact of like seeing what it is for others than the people that have raised them and have told them to have empathy, to have to care. But yet, when they start to care, and they're like, "What are you caring about? There, you don't do that woke ass shit. Don't do this, that, and that." Like, aren't they still human? Dad, mom, uncle, you know what I mean? My brother, you know what I mean? But yet, you want to be selective who you want to do that for.
I tell you what, man. I think we need to invite people on the other side of the aisle to come on. I
Absolutely.
would love to do that. So I'm inviting anybody who wants to. I mean, obviously we can't get everybody, but we.
No, let's invite, let's put it out there. Let's see who wants to comment and who wants to sit on the round table. We'll get six people. And however, they know their policy. And granted, I don't know
Yeah,
policy as well. Okay.
we openly admit that we're just a bunch of knuckleheads here. That's I mean,
Yeah, we're just socially aware of what is in front of us, and I'm okay with being corrected. You know
we're
what I mean?
knuckleheads.
Correct me if I'm
We're
wrong.
knuckleheads with hearts. I think that's the best way I could describe it right now. I'm a knucklehead with a heart, and I'm very quiet about how I've been feeling about this. But thanks to Julie, my Tran from Share My Roots, uh,
Julie, big ups because you gave us the balls to actually voice this and do this today because we knew on social media there was not that many voices, and we for us to stay silent is being that hypocrite where you're not even just because we don't shut the door doesn't mean we're not even giving a hand or a voice.
But Julie,
And
if you want to come on, Julie, I'm talking to you right now, Julie. You should come on, and we could talk more about this, and create the next episode with you, Julie. And disclaimer: Chris and I are friends with Julie from Share My Roots. We are we love and respect her so much. But after she wrote the carousel, that post, we feel like deep we have a deeper connection with Julie. So just want to put that out
and
there.
yeah, we're gonna put off this carousel on this thing so they can scroll through it. And if you take a look at it, you don't feel anything, cool. And like me, you both know, not everybody's gonna be aligned with what we're thinking. And I'm just asking, allow me to have empathy to feel for others. But I just want to ask you, if you saying we have freedom, independence to feel and act however we choose, and I just want to be good to humans and have the empathy, but yet don't attack me for having a heart. You can quote the law, you can quote whatever you want. Cool, law's law. I'll abide by it. And that's where sometimes people want to preach and lecture to me about right and wrong. Of what is right and wrong, right? If somebody needs help, me and you are going to try to help. Now, do we help everybody? Absolutely not. But I feel right now the we need healing in our own community.
That's first. That's first. Well, look, man.
We need. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I've made my point. I appreciate you coming on, and we will try to put a roundtable together. I think that's the next thing, and debate online. I mean, it's open season now. It's open season, baby.
Yeah, we just want to address this for Independence Day to have a dialogue, and it's just a dialogue. That's the American way, is to talk about this, to unpack it, to see where everybody stands, right?
And have a great barbecue out there. Enjoy your July 4th weekend, and we will be eagerly awaiting to read the comment section.
Yeah, hey, happy July 4th, and we're celebrating a day where we got rid of the monarchy. There is no kings here, and that's where what America fought for its independence. So just remember that on 4th of July, that there was no kings in America, and that's what the America was built on.
Thank you, Chris, for that. That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, peace, brother.
Thank you for listening to The Vietnamese with Kenneth Nguyen. Special thanks to Brittany Tran, to Jane Nguyen, Catherine Nguyen, Tina Pham, Sydney Jamie, and Christo Trin. Please find us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at The Vietnamese Podcast.